Okay, might have seemed a little abruptly ending there for some folks, but obviously there are some issues with this autopsy report and Dr. Baker's testimony. So I'm going to get right to my guest here as we get ready to wrap up this first part of the half hour here. Dr. Ziv Cohen is with me, forensic psychiatrist. First time on my show. Thank you, doctor, for joining from here in New York City. Also, as I like to say, Gene, every time somebody from the old gang is back, I say, we're getting the band back together, man. Gene Rossi. Gene Rossi is here, and of course, a former federal prosecutor, a veteran of 106 trials, as I recall. Let me start with you, doctor. You're a forensic psychiatrist. Give me the thumbnail of how that discipline plays into this testimony we're hearing now in this case.
Sure. I think that, we're hearing about things that are relevant to mental health and the relationship of the mind and the body. Primarily, we're hearing about substance abuse and whether substance abuse could have been one of the causes of death or the presence of substances in George Floyd's body. What we're hearing from this particular medical examiner is decidedly no. We've had other evidence over the course of the trial that the profile of substances in George Floyd's blood were not really consistent with what you see when someone dies from overdose. So you're getting a very strong message from this medical examiner that George Floyd was a sick man, even though he appears strong and healthy. He was a sick man. He had an enlarged heart from hypertension, and he had very small coronary arteries that were filled with plaques, and he was not able to withstand the force that was used on him. And the medical examiner is very clear that in his mind, the cause of death is homicide. He's giving a very nice tutorial about what that means to a medical examiner. He's not laying blame on anyone in a legal sense, but from a factual perspective, this was not a natural death, and nor was it an accidental death. It was a homicide.
And welcome back, folks, to the Law and Crime Network. This is the afternoon session. Michael Bryant here. The court in the case against Derek Chauvin is on a break, and they timed that. I don't know, they got my email, whatever. They timed it perfectly because we just finished direct examination of Andrew Baker, the medical examiner who, for Hennepin County, is the guy. He did the autopsy on George Floyd. And it's unusual to see so many preliminary witnesses supporting findings that skew a little bit differently than the medical examiner. And part of that may have to do with the fact that there's one big word missing from that autopsy report, and that is asphyxiation. You could even say positional asphyxiation. Not in there, not part of what this doctor felt was the cause of death. And that has given the defense an opportunity to drive a truck right through that ultimate conclusion. That is the cross-examination we are waiting for, and it's going to be a doozy, I do believe. Meanwhile, I have with me a couple of great guests. Dr. Ziv Cohen is here. He's a forensic psychiatrist. Doctor, let's talk about the drugs, because they are huge here when it comes to determining the causation issue. We've heard a lot of testimony about, well, here's what fentanyl would do. The person would probably just kind of fall asleep, stop breathing, and die. Very quiet and peaceful. The methamphetamine is an upper and might show the person being more agitated and more aggressive. I didn't hear as much as I would like to hear about the mixture of these two and what on the street they would call, I guess, a speedball. What's your take on the importance of the mixture of the two drugs as it applies to what George Floyd did or didn't do that day?
Often mix those drugs for that reason. So the amphetamine will give you a nice racy feeling, a stimulating feeling, and then the fentanyl will bring you down and calm you. So it's a combination that can be popular with drug users. And so the risk, of course, is that the speed is going to put a strain on the heart. It's going to increase the heart rate. It's going to increase blood pressure, which puts a strain on the heart. It's going to increase the demand of the heart for oxygen. And yet, at the very same time, the fentanyl is suppressing breathing. Opioids like fentanyl actually suppress your breathing centers in your brain and tell your lungs to stop breathing. So while the heart is actually needing more oxygen and is under stress, your body, your lungs are going to deliver less oxygen. And so that's a potential lethal concoction of combining these drugs. But importantly, the toxicologists are saying that in his blood, he didn't have the levels that you would typically see in someone who had a drug overdose, either accidental or intentional. So I think that is the weakness in a potential defense argument that he died from drug use.
Yeah, of course, the defense is going to suggest that, those are all academic comparisons, and in a human being, everything's different. All of the underlying conditions are different. The moment is different. The anxiety or adrenaline, all of those things are factors. We certainly are going to hear more of that from the defense. Dr. Andrew Baker filling in some of the blanks there. I hope all of that's on the final because I've been taking some copious notes. He is the guy, the medical examiner, who did the autopsy on Mr. Floyd. So I want to thank and excuse Dr. Ziv Cohen, forensic psychiatrist. Thank you for being here. I'm glad we got a chance to talk before we got back into testimony. We'll see you next time, Doctor.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Take care.
Okay, so this is important testimony, folks, and one of the key issues here is that this guy saw the video after the autopsy, but he did nothing to change his report. Still no asphyxia mentioned even after he saw the video. That's critical. We'll be right back.